with all further ado, Paul, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Bob. And Jim as well. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
And then for hooking me up with my presentation today. So this is great. You know, you're always hopeful, at least I am as a presenter, that the room is filled with thousands of people. So I'm going to imagine that there's thousands of them. But, no, this will be actually very comfortable, very informal. So as I'm throwing all this information at you this morning, if you have questions along the way, this is an ideal group to kind of pause and address some of the questions that you might have. So yeah, as Bob said, I have a neat role that I play in my life. So one is a very formal, career-oriented role. That's my professorship at Skidmore College. I've been there for 20 years. I never would have thought I would have been at one place for 20 years. I always looked at my mom and my father thinking, man, we're dinosaurs. You know, we're in the same place for 30 years. Are you kidding me? Who does that? And here I am, you know, in the same role. So I'm also the director of the Human Nutrition and Metabolism Laboratory at Skidmore College. I've been fortunate. I have been an active scientific researcher. So I have been bestowed the title of fellow in two of the organizations that are considered the leaders in the field, the American College of Sports Medicine and the Obesity Society. I'm also an advisory board member of the Capital Region American Heart Association, so I do quite a bit of work for the American Heart Association as well in this area. And I'm the Chief Science Officer and founder of my own consulting company, Nourishing Science, that does a lot of outreach, does group consulting. I talk to big industry. So I was recently at Computer Sciences Corporation, a couple $1 billion multinational company, so that was a lot of fun. They hired me to be their health and nutrition and fitness guru during their conferences, which is kind of fun. You know, those people are kind of away from their work environment, so they let down a little bit, so it's a really neat experience for me to play that role of helping them not go too crazy while they're enjoying themselves. I also consult with healthcare industry. Right now I'm doing some consulting work with MVP Healthcare. All right, so what am I going to cover today? We'll kind of package this in a way that makes good sense for all of you. So I'm going to address kind of 4 things. I'm going to probably only get to the first 3 in this first part of the talk, because I'm going to let everyone take some time to stand up and walk around. Please don't feel obliged to sit there this whole time. So if you want to get up and move around, I'm one of these high fidgety type people. I drive my family nuts when we're driving. So if we're in a car and we're driving, I'm the guy who's shaking his legs and I'm going like this. And that's just natural. So I'm sorry if I kind of get a little fidgety, but feel free to do that as well. So I'm going to talk about what does it mean to be fit and healthy. Why is it so difficult in our current culture and environment to be fit and healthy? And then some current approaches and maybe why they're not working. And then what I would consider to be the solutions. And then the practical, everyday, moment by moment lifestyle strategies that we can do to make a favorable impact, beneficial impact on not just our own lives, but those that we're all interacting with. Because I know that many of you serve very different roles. I mean, just in a couple of you that I've met. So we have a neat audience. I don't know if you should probably all introduce yourselves to each other. That's what I normally do in my class. But, all right, so what does it mean to be healthy and fit? So this is actually a lot of fun when you think about it. You know, I mean, if you just kind of close your eyes, you don't need to close your eyes, but and envision in your mind, you know, who are the epitome of fitness and health? What do you think? Sumo wrestlers? I mean, so just a little short YouTube. So why not do what the sumos do? You know, they get to eat a ton of food. Who's on board for that? I am. 20,000 calories? Sign me up. Sign me up, 20,000 calories. And most of it's fatty, you know, fish and noodles, high carb. And here, these individuals are some of the healthiest that inhabit the planet. Sumo wrestlers. And they have low blood pressure, they have low heart rate. Now, granted, they sleep for 4-hour naps during the day and they drink tons of beer. I mean, who wouldn't be happy to do all that? But I mean, they're eating all this food and they're only exercising. Really, their events last less than 10 seconds. I mean, it's kind of, wow. I have to show you this kind of humorous little clip. Check this out. I'm not going to show you the whole fight. And listen, it's early morning. I figured I'd wake you up with some nude men. Let me show you. Watch this. This is Japan. High-level sumo wrestling.
I forget how many.
And now watch this. You caught that. I mean, here in Japan, the healthiest nation in the world, by the way, recently was voted the healthiest nation in the world. And the sumo wrestlers are getting ready to fight, and they're promoting McDonald's. I thought that was kind of funny. All right. So we have this at one extreme, you could say, but again, a fairly healthy population. And then we have, of course, what we would kind of also envision as being a healthy group. Runners, endurance athletes. Now here, this group, they're eating significantly less, 4,000 to 8,000 calories a day. And their events, instead of only lasting less than 30 seconds, like the sumo wrestlers, they're sometimes going for hours on end. I mean, literally hours on end. And again, I don't mean to do this in a humorous way. I don't do it in a disparaging way. But just to let you know that, listen, I was a triathlete for a long time. And I've had this, not to this extent, but I've done what they've done here. I bunked, and it's an uncomfortable.
Welcome to review. I'm Forrest Mc.
Let me see him. Some of you may have seen this before. Now you don't see this in your everyday high school athlete, but I mean they do push themselves to exhaustion. Some of them, some of these young boys and girls, perhaps are compromised in their nutritional intake. This was kind of a hyperbole of an event that was magnified on the popular media, but it's two women nearing the end of the Hawaii Ironman triathlon, and they got to such a state of depletion that, yeah. Has anybody bonked before? Yeah, TK is a triathlon guy too. Uncomfortable. Neither of us, I hope, went to that level. Yeah, so at this state, that's it's extreme, but it's a reality too. So they're in rough shape. I wouldn't suggest pulling on somebody's arm. Just relax. We also have these individuals who have as their career, so those are maybe if you want to call them hobbies, although they're making a living, I would say the sumos and the endurance athletes. But we have the marathon monks. Has anybody heard about the marathon monks? Oh, it's a fascinating group. I've done a lot of reading on them, and I just find these types of individuals that have pursued excellence, in this case they're pursuing enlightenment, and they risk death. And it's a 7-year journey, these monks, in Kyoto, Japan. So it's 7 years that they have to fulfill for this, to reach this new state of monkhood. And it involves a lot, more than just them sitting in isolation, or in solitude, doing their prayer, but they have to do a physical task. And the physical task is they have to run 50 miles a day for 100 days in a row. So for 17 hours every day, they are moving. And they can't run, they have to walk, and they can only do it in sandals. And they go about through 3 or 4 pairs of these sandals a day. Now you're asking yourself, why is he telling us all this? Well, for one thing, it's just interesting that there's groups of people that commit their life to performing physical exertion at this level in an attempt to reach enlightenment. And I don't know if they bonk or not, but they're consuming very few calories. They're losing 1/3 of their body weight on their journey. This is actually one on the journey right here. And they call them the monks of death because if you don't fulfill it, if you start it, you're expected to take your life on the journey. So it's 7 years. Every year you have 100 days in a row of walking 50 miles. So you get up at 4 in the morning and you walk until you finish, which is usually late at night. And then you do it all over again for 100 days. Oh, by the way, at year 5, you have to completely starve yourself of any food or water. And they talk about how the medical establishment can't understand because we can only survive usually for 3 or 4 days maximum without water. They go 9 days without drinking water. And they're in terrible state. This whole video clip, I'm not going to show you it all, but I mean, they actually show you because they don't allow cameras. So I guess in one attempt they had a little video cam and they had the guy getting up and going because they let them go to the bathroom once a day. And the journey at the beginning of the 9-day starvation takes a couple of minutes, and by the 9th day it takes them an hour, and it's only 100 yards away. But they're collapsing, they're standing back up, and it's not healthy. But I wanted to show you this just because this was of interest for this topic.
Hey, yo, you in the denim liaison.
Sorry about
Me?
these.
No, not you. You in the mom jeans.
Me?
No, not you, mom. You. Me? Yeah, I want you to go to Geico.com. You save some money.
Bypass this, but once in YouTube, you get up enough hits.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
An Olympic marathon is 42 kilometers. On each of the next 100 days, Fujinami will cover twice that distance. Unlike
day.
a professional athlete though, the 44-year-old must traverse treacherous mountain trails, often in complete darkness. There are no high-tech supplements to keep him going, just a daily rice ball and a bowl of noodles.
A rice ball and a bowl of noodles.
やっぱり続けるということですね。6日間は続ける。
Okay. So fascinating. So yeah, what does it mean to be fit? So right there in this short period of time, I've shown you some pretty extreme examples, and by some estimations, these groups are considered healthy. They have some attributes of being healthy and of being fit. Or should we risk our lives? I won't show you these, but we have also individuals that engage in high impact sports. And as Bob put together recently a concussion symposium, this is a group of people, and there's other sports as well. We know that lacrosse and soccer are also high impact and concussion. But sometimes people look to those as their form of being fit and healthy. So there's different ways of looking at this. How about the latest fitness craze? How many have tried CrossFit? I would imagine some of you have maybe heard it and seen it. Hop till you drop is another way that we think about it. We have the P90X, the Insanity, the T25. And I mean, these people, if you've not seen it, it's high energy, high output, and tremendously intense. And they go from one event to the next. And you can see them going here. I'm just going to pass this along. So they give 3-minute bouts. And if you've ever done CrossFit or know someone who does it, I mean, it's high intensity. There's some controversy surrounding it because of its high impact on the body, high impact on the cardiovascular system. So as you can see the little clock here counting down, in this 2-minute time span, they start off rowing, and then they go to throwing a 20-pound plus medicine ball overhead repeatedly. Showing that guy's struggling a little bit. And then from that, they do these core stomach exercises. And then they go to jumping up on a box. And then if you're really quick, you get to start lifting a kettlebell up overhead. So that's the kind of other examples of training that we have. And again, those are fairly extreme. And so others say, well, let's find some moderation to this. Let's find some common ground where it's not so intense. And we're finding that there are other forms of physical activity, physical movement, that are in many ways equally effective. Tai Chi, of course, yoga are 2 examples of this less intense. My favorite, however, is the walrus exercise.
Excuse me, I'm looking for your lowest priced unlimited plan.
Walmart Family Mobile is only $39.88.
This is impressive. You got an animal that is more than 50% body fat. So we talk about health. There we go. Look at this. This bonus is good. Enough fun. Let's get into some real stuff. So, what I showed you there were examples of routines, exercise routines, physical activity routines, if you want to group them under that heading, that people engage in to strive for this level of fitness or health. But we also have lifestyle that plays a role, independent. So, if we kind of compartmentalize exercise that somebody does and physical activity versus a lifestyle. What about a lifestyle that somebody wants to adopt? And we have evidence of this, that there are some cultures, there's many of these cultures, that lead a lifestyle independent of this programmed, structured exercise routine that are extremely healthy and extremely fit. And so we have evidence of that. Of course, I talked about Japan as being one of the top-rated, healthiest cultures in the world. Singapore has it, Greenland Eskimos, Switzerland, Scandinavian countries, Iceland, Mediterranean. Now, what's very interesting about this list of examples, if you kind of look at it, there's some commonalities. I mean, they're active people. They live, in some cases, around a body of water, which is sometimes useful. But their diet is not always similar. And so one of the main points I want to stress here today is that there's great diversity, great variability in what potentially provides us health and fitness. Great variability. And in these cultures, some of them surviving on nothing but animal meat, organ meat, and blood from the animal. Others that are surviving simply on the greens and the vegetation that's growing, and maybe some fish. The point is that they have a lot of differences, and so we oftentimes like to isolate and provide a very monolithic way of thinking about what good nutrition is, but it's very diverse, and you've all heard the saying, you are what you eat eats. And so you're not so much what you eat, it's what you eat has eaten eats. And so that's really important. And so I always say to people that are sometimes, I'm a primarily plant-based eater, but I also never would turn away from a nice, grass-fed piece of beef, or if it was something from dairy. I mean, those are healthy, omega-3 rich sources of nourishment. So you would never want to just simply categorize these foods in that manner. So I thought this was appropriate because we're kind of getting to that point where some of us have had a New Year's resolution. Come on, how many? Yeah. And how many of you are sticking to it? Probably not many. I know I'm not. I was on the scale over the weekend. I'm like, geez, that's not too good here, fella. But at that time, I thought this was an interesting statistic. More than 60% of Americans make New Year's resolutions, the vast majority of which are health-oriented, right? I mean, think about the ones that you've made. Yeah, you want to make some more money. But probably for the most part, it's about how to be healthy. What can we do to be healthy in these New Year's resolutions? 8% succeed. Wow, that's staggering, sobering that there's that few. So the question that you should all be asking as you're sitting here today is, why is it so difficult? What are the challenges that we face in order to live this healthier, more fit, active life? Well, you've all heard this also before, this toxic environment. So we're constantly bombarded in so many different ways. And when we have food here today, it's actually, I give much credit, excellent choices. I'm always amazed that you go to a health talk or a nutrition talk, or I go to my conferences in my own field, and there's pastry and Danish strewn out all over the place, and yeah, it's just interesting. So yeah, the environment is for sure a huge challenge. And related to that, so we have human willpower, motivation. We don't succeed all that good on it, good with it. But here's some interesting data, and I'm sure some of the other speakers might be talking about this, so I won't spend too much time. But calorie intake over the last 40 years, 30 to 40 years, has gone up. It's gone up, and you can see that. And what these down here relate to, or correspond to, is the entire population. This is the normal weight population. So you think, yeah, that's only for people who are overweight or obese that are overeating. Well, no. Normal weight are overweight are and obese are. And again, the difference between overweight and obese is just a simple classification of the BMI, the body mass index. But it's across the board. And the vast majority of it, if not entirely, this overeating, is in the form of one macronutrient. It's not fat. Fat rarely makes you fat, believe it or not. It's carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates. So you see that right here. You can see the data from the 1970s and the precipitous increase in carbohydrate intake. And you can see it has occurred across the board. So you can make a real strong correlation. We're not talking about necessarily cause and effect, although some would argue that there is. But at least there's a really strong correlation here between carbohydrate intake and our obesity epidemic. On the reverse of that, protein intake has gone down. How many of you have heard that Americans eat too much protein? Boy, that gets me so upset every time I hear that. Nothing could be furthest from the truth. We eat the wrong types of protein many times because of the foods that have protein that are not necessarily the best for us, but we fail miserably in consuming an adequate amount of healthy protein compared to the cultures that we would consider the most healthy. I mean, they're eating plant-based, rich sources of protein, if not, like I said before, organ meats and other sources of food. So don't for a second listen to anybody who says that Americans eat too much protein. That's totally off base. All right, we're moving a lot less as well. This is just showing you the relative percentages of decrement in physical activity. So it's compounded, it's multi-factorial. Too much sitting. And is that a true picture? You see that? Taking an escalator up to the gym. We're actually being inactive while we're being active. Is that possible? Right? I think it's always funny, these new exercise contraptions that are coming out. And they're simply just trying to make the exercise easier. Get out and walk, or make yourself sweat and burn up a little energy. Yeah, it's just funny. And of course, I mean, whoever has a pet, you can vouch for this, but we take much better care of our pets than we do ourselves, right? We're buying them the top-notch food and mixture of things, and we're making sure that they're getting their walk, not that necessarily we're getting ours. But yeah, it's not that funny though. And I say that because there's a direct correlation between the length of time that people sit and their risk of mortality, dying. And so you can see that. So people that, and it's even among, here's the active group. So even if, active individuals, and what I mean by that are those of us that structure that exercise into our day. We kind of compartmentalize it. Oh, I don't need to get up and walk to my colleague right now. I'll take the escalator or the elevator because I know I'm going to get my workout in later, or I've already done it this morning. So that means the rest of the day I can be pretty inactive. So we build that into our day as well, and that's unfortunate. So that even among active individuals, the more they sit, there's a slight increase in the mortality risk. But for sure, people who are inactive. And as you increase the number of hours that you sit, the risk for disease goes up. And so I always find this stuff interesting, that if you were kind of take your entire period of a day, or in this case a year, and what does it look like? That's a lot of time that we're spent sitting and watching just TV. Whoops. I mean, this is just TV. About 10% of our year is spent watching TV. What a waste. When you think about it, you've only got so many years in this earth. And that's across the board. Women, men, and then of course we'll be fine with young people. So, this challenge is not only related to our environment, our exposure and our accessibility to fast, cheap, inexpensive food that's abundant. It's abundant. It's not also due to our built environment that has made our propensity to be active less, because we have this built environment. It's not so easy anymore to simply wake up and walk out of your house as a young boy or girl and be able to go out and free play anywhere, right, randomly. I mean, neighborhoods aren't built that way. We don't have sidewalks the way we used to. We're building in urban places that just don't make it conducive to a young boy or girl to be able to just wake up and run outside and go out and play. So there's less of those types of neighborhoods. But another critical factor is sleep quality. I just have a little personal story. I have a 12-year-old. I have a 20-year-old who's home on spring break right now from college. He's a sophomore in college. But then I have my 12-year-old son, and I'm thinking maybe he's just excited, but as soon as my son got home from college, he's been getting up at 4 in the morning. I'm like, Aiden, what the heck are you doing? This morning I caught him, I got up to get ready for this at 6 o'clock, and he's downstairs, 12 years old, making French toast. I'm like, what the heck? What time were you up this morning? So his sleep quality, for some, maybe he's excited that his brother's home or something, but this was a study that was done showing the sleep quality index. And anything that's above a 5 is representative of poor sleep quality. It means you, one, haven't gotten the recommended amount of hours of sleep that you require for your age, and two, the sleep quality hasn't been that good. You've been waking up, you haven't been in deep REM sleep. And what's very interesting, even among healthy young individuals, this is a group of athletic high school students that they did this in, adolescent athletes. Their sleep, look at this, more than 36 of the total, whatever that number would be, 45 maybe, 44, have poor sleep quality. And that's what's really interesting about this, what makes this even more alarming, is this quality index is based on an adult sleep quality pattern. So getting 7 hours of sleep a night. We all know adolescents require how much sleep, Margaret?
I would say probably
8 or 9. Yeah. So not only would these kids get reporting this really poor sleep quality based on overall, but based on adults. I mean, it was based on the adult sleep quality index. It was even lower for them. So that's not a good sign. So what does this mean? The sleep quality is representative of something more than just the fact that they're going to be, more cranky than they normally are as teenagers. And you guys are getting them in schools, but it's also going to increase their likelihood of gaining weight. What I find interesting is also new research has shown that using these electronic devices, iPads, iPhones, any type of device that has that backlight LED, that actually makes an imprint on their mind. And that it resonates in their brain for a longer period of time. In some cases, they believe it lasts for an hour or two after they've turned it off. It continues to resonate in their mind. I mean, this is total anecdotal, not scientific. I'm sorry, the scientists in the room like myself. I find that if I go to bed and I've got my phone or my iPad with me and I'm doing some work and then I turn it off, I don't know, I feel like my sleep quality is definitely not what it should be. And they say that there's that potential for that imprinting on the brain. So something to think about. Here's another one just showing that you perform less, and we all know that. When you're sleep deprived, so this would be on normal sleep, and this is how much distance you covered in a time trial, exercise trial. Here's what it is if you're sleep deprived. And you can see this is the overall change right here, and that's highly significant. So I'm just showing that, with short periods of sleep deprivation. So the question then is, all right, what's at play here? What's making these young adolescent boys and girls more unhealthy? Well, we all know that they're becoming less fit. And this is very interesting data. This is from the American College of Sports Medicine journal that they use, their signature journal, Medicine, Science, and Sport and Exercise. And it shows that since 1998 and 99, the 20-meter shuttle run was performed at an average. This is, let's see, the boys, let me make sure I get this right. The boys, it was 47, 46 seconds. Girls, it was 34 and a half seconds. So the longer you go, the better. Right, Tony? You can vouch for that. Yeah, look at this. I read this and I was like, what? No, there's no way. It's got to be a misprint. It's got to be a misprint. In 10 years' time, look at these scores. Boys go from 47 to 3. These are national norms. I don't know. I'm sorry, it's early in the morning. I get worked up about this stuff. I know, usually it's like in the afternoon I get heated under my collar. But even in the morning, I'm like, what the heck? What is at play? How could they have that much of a decrease in their fitness in 10 years' time? Well, it's happening rapidly. So just because the obesity epidemic is kind of stabilized and in some cases shown a little downward trend, it ain't resulting in people getting more fit, that's for sure. And you can see that here as well with the girls' scores. So 34, and now they're only averaging 27, 26. So they're less fit, and many hold the belief that it's because they're less active. And you can see that across the board, as a young boy or girl, this happens to be the girls here, non-Hispanic whites, non-Hispanic black, and Mexican Americans, across the board, look at these numbers. Look at how it plummets. After a young, rambunctious 6 or 11-year-old girl reaches that critical age of adolescence, pre-puberty, puberty, look at how their activity level just plummets. Is that a function of the environment that we're placing them in, like the school environment? And no fault of anybody in this room, that's for sure. Is it their home environment? Is it the built outside environment? Is it cultural? What's at play that makes this so drastic? I mean, some of it's probably normal human, growth and adolescence and evolution, but man, that's a big drop. Boys too. So the reality is there. So we've all seen these before. These are the latest statistics from the Center for Disease Control showing the increase in obesity. And I always find it interesting. In my class, I show the 30 or so, starting in 1985 all the way up to 2012. And you watch the color change of the map, and then the new colors being added. And it's like, man, that's crazy. And this is for obesity. Of course, they have these for overweight as well. But this would be obese. So right now, the current population is considered 67%, maybe a little bit more, of the current U.S. adult population is considered overweight and obese. Of that percentage, about 34% are considered obese. That's a large amount. If you're talking about 2/3 of the population that are classified as overweight or obese. This is just the obese statistics. So what's the solution that we often try to encourage to help people that are overweight or obese? Weight loss, right? I mean, who's heard of that? Of course, weight loss is a very effective strategy. And usually, has anybody heard anything detrimental of a person who is overweight or obese losing weight? Have you heard any disadvantages of that? I see a lot of nod, not too much. Well, I know, I'm giving you guys total gloom and doom here. There's going to be some hope, though, I promise. At least by noon, I'll give you some benefit of hope. But no, look at what happens when we lose weight. Our body fat stores lots of toxins, PCBs, and these pollutant, organochlorine pollutants, they're called, POPs. And so those store in our fat tissue, primarily in what we have is our subcutaneous fat tissue. That seems to be a very mobile area of weight loss for a lot of people. And that is also a site of a lot of these POPs and PCBs. And here was a very recent study that examined some of the critical PCBs in a group of overweight people who had lost weight over 12 months. And look at how they all have changed, some of them drastically. So losing weight is always not associated with health. That when you lose weight, you often increase, not often, almost in every case, increase your release of plasma of toxins inside your fat stores into your blood. So you have to be careful. So there's effective strategies that you can do nutritionally. How do I know this? Well, I did my own study. So back in September, I recruited 43 obese men and women from the Saratoga community, actually some from down here in Albany as well. So I got a very generous grant, and I put together a weight loss study. So I said, I'm going to take these 43 obese men and women, and I'm going to induce a pretty significant weight loss in a 10-week time period. And in 10 weeks, they lost, on average, 24 pounds. That's a lot. I know. Now, some would say, well, that's too much. I've heard that you're only supposed to lose a half a pound to a pound a week. Well, believe it or not, I know I'm throwing a lot of curveballs at you, but that's good. I want this to be a little bit thought-provoking and controversial. There's strong evidence to show that people who lose weight quicker do better long-term. Now, that's kind of like, what? No way. And I wasn't a believer of that either. But there's evidence to show that individuals who have that fast and rapid weight loss can sustain that better long-term. And there's a number of different variables that impact that. So again, I want you to kind of put aside your dogma of saying, listen, weight loss should be slow and steady for it to last. Well, there's strong scientific evidence to show that in people that lose it fast and rapid, they sometimes have better success, because successful weight loss is defined as 10% of your body weight loss and maintaining that 10% weight loss for a year or longer. So people who lose it rapidly in a couple of months, 10 weeks like these people did, in 10 weeks, 24 pounds, I've got another grant to watch them for 12 months, right? I'm not dumb. I said, hey, if I can induce successful 10% weight loss, and that was 10%, I want to see if they can be successful. So I wrote the grant agency and said, hey, I got something really good here. I got 10% weight loss in these obese people. Give me some more money to follow them for a year. And they didn't even bat an eyelash. They said, absolutely, here's some more money, follow them for a year. So they're coming up on halfway at the end of April. But I want to see of those that lost it really quick, because I have scientific data on what rate they lost that weight. So I want you to put that aside too, that slow and steady is the winner, not always for that. So I measured toxins, very expensive. So in these 43 people, it was $43,000. It was $1,000 a person. I know that's crazy. You're probably thinking that's just unheard of, but that's how much money these analyses cost. So yeah, I had to get a lot of money to do this. But the important thing in this is showing you, here is the men, I'm sorry, this is the women here, I think, yeah, showing you the correlation between their total PCB change and the percent of fat mass lost. So the more fat mass they lost, because I have a really sophisticated piece of equipment called an iDEXA. GE makes it, and it's $239,000. Yeah, it's expensive, but it helps me, it allows me to quantify their fat mass changes, not only full body, but also viscerally and subcutaneously. So I can tell if they're losing subcutaneous belly fat or visceral belly fat. And in this group, this is just total body fat mass changes. I haven't finished the visceral fat yet to see what happens with the PCBs, but at least in this group of 43 men and women, that as they lost more body fat, their plasma toxins also increased. Now you would say to yourself, that's not necessarily all that good, and you're right, it's not, because this increase in plasma toxins that we release when we lose body fat increases our insulin resistance, and that's not a good, healthy thing to have. That means your insulin's not doing its job the way it should be. And so this is associated with some detrimental changes. So I just want to throw that out there because I think we oftentimes associate weight loss with only positive healthy change, and it's not always. Now this doesn't mean that this is a bad thing, because there are strategies nutritionally, and that's what I'm also doing in this study. So although this looks really pronounced, and it is, I mean it's significant, it's really not as high as that previous figure that I showed you. These are really high values. And my values were not quite as high, and that's because I was providing them a very nutrient-dense, antioxidant-rich supplement along this 10-week weight loss period. So I'm hoping that at the end of the year, this continued consumption of this high antioxidant-rich beverage is going to suppress, or hopefully secrete and release and remove those plasma toxins, because you want to get rid of them. They're stored in your body, and you don't want them just fermenting and wreaking havoc inside your body as they are. I do have some other promise, and I didn't put this up here. I did measure oxidative stress, which is a harmful process that we have in our body, and total antioxidant capacity. That means your body's defense system against these PCBs and these other harmful chemicals. And the good news is, after 10 weeks, total antioxidant capacity went up significantly. So at least I'm showing that, yes, PCBs are increasing, but their body is responding favorably. And that's this study, I'm presenting it in California at the end of April. And it was welcomed with open arms, because it's the first study, this study that I did, to show that in association with plasma toxins going up, you can increase the antioxidant capacity if they consume this antioxidant-rich beverage. Ed?
I just had a question. Is PCB levels in fat the same in everyone, or is it your caloric intake that adjusts?
It seems to be dependent upon your environmental exposure to certain harmful substances, pollutants, foods, or water bottles, with the PBA, is it PBA? Yeah.
EPA.
BPA, yeah. So yeah, there's other things. And then your quantity of fat stores. Yeah, Karen.
So as a nutritionist, of course, I'm dying to know, what is that supplement?
I can't tell you.
So is this coveted, is it a secret?
Well, no, I can
Is
show
it
you.
a toxin?
Yeah, I can show you. It's just an antioxidant, fruit and vegetable, organic fruit and vegetable.
That you guys created yourselves?
No, I did. The company did.
So I'm just wondering, this change in antioxidants in the body, how much of it is the exogenous from the drink, and how much, I'm assuming they were exercising during the weight loss?
No exercise. They only started the exercise after the 10 weeks.
Huh.
Yeah. I wanted to see the independent effects, and that's a great question. So Sonia's a researcher. If you throw exercise in, how much does that have to play on this? I said, I don't want any exercise. You people can't exercise. You haven't been exercising in the last, 20 years anyway. But I said, I want to control that. I don't want you doing any exercise. I want you just eating and losing this weight. So it's really cool. I'm really excited that I did that because now I can account for all of that change simply due to that weight loss.
What happened to their lean mass?
Great question. It went down a little bit, but not, I would say, physiologically significant. It went down statistically. It went down 1.5 kilos, which is really very impressive. They were high protein. They were eating a lot of protein. Yeah. And I was surprised that we were able to maintain the lean. But I mean, it did. I mean, I have to report it significantly decreased, but 3 pounds out of a total of 24 pounds was really good. Very good. Yes.
If a person has exposure to those toxins, but they don't carry the body fat, what happens then?
Well, everyone has body fat, so it's still going to get stored in that other body fat. The danger in that case of those that maybe are lean and don't have excess body fat to store and house those PCBs, I would say it's going to wreak havoc on their other healthy tissue and organs in their body. So in some ways, it might even be more problematic. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but that's probably a good logical leap because those toxins have to destroy something or be stored somewhere. And if you don't have the storage area, then they probably just start circulating around looking for something else to damage and circulate out. So why should you care? You know why you should care. There's lots of health conditions associated with this. It's costly. An estimated 250,000 premature deaths annually. Physical inactivity is estimated to account for 6%. I work for this, I consult for this healthcare company, but the annual costs for an individual who is classified as obese or overweight is more than $1,500 a year per person. I mean, when you think about our healthcare costs, and that's enormous. So people that are at risk for these conditions and these lifestyles are massively expensive. Massively. These are just slides showing, look at this, obesity surgeries. We think this is the panacea now to treat obesity. So since 1998, yes, obesity rates are probably going down. Well, one of the reasons why we're doing a heck of a lot more surgeries. 200,000 surgeries. And back in the year 1998, not many at all. That's a lot. There's a couple going on right now at University of Albany, I'm sure, or Albany Med, as we're talking. Diabetes is continuing to increase. The cost is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Heart disease is increasing among all age groups. And the cost is just exorbitant. So what's disturbing, disease is one thing, and life expectancy is not altering all that much, although we have evidence right here that it is, but of course with our sophisticated medical and pharmacological advancements, we're keeping people alive who are now more sick. So it's no surprise, but even with these medical and technological and pharmaceutical advances, we're still seeing a potential decline in life expectancy in the United States among this generation's offspring, and that's really disturbing. It's the first time in the history of modern man that we're going to potentially see a decrease in life expectancy. I mean, just think and pause for that, for those of you that have kids, or you have loved ones that are of young ages, their life expectancy is going to be shorter than what all of ours is. And this is just showing you the life-shortening effect according to all the different groups. Even if it is a couple of years or a year, that's still important. So what's the bottom line here? The bottom line is that unhealthy lifestyle factors and poor nutrition outweigh the healthy ones. And of these unhealthy lifestyle components, we've talked about the sleep, media saturation, just the bombardment of media that's impacting our lifestyle decisions. This decrease in physical activity primarily as a result of this built environment, but also societal de-emphasis on a physically active life. And then from a nourishment perspective, this low cost of energy-dense foods, increased portion sizes, advertising, sweet beverage. I have a great slide that I sometimes show with soda consumption and the contribution to our caloric intake, and it's massive. More frequently eating away from home or other ones. So what are some of the current approaches to get fit and healthy? Well, a lot of them are unrealistic. And what I mean by that is I showed you some of those examples. Some of the current craze that we have right now on exercise is really over the top. I don't know if you're aware of this. I am, because I have the condition. And it's called atrial fibrillation. But we're having healthy people. It's called lone AFib because I have a very healthy heart. My heart rate's at 40 ranges between 44 and 48. I have low blood pressure. I'm 52. I don't take any medicine. But this AFib is a condition associated with individuals who overexert, and I've been guilty of that. The highest rates of it are in Scandinavian countries where they're the most healthy. So the highest rates of AFib are in places like Denmark and Sweden, Norway. You know, think about what they do there. What do they do there? Yeah, they're out cross-country skiing everywhere they go. I mean, these are highly fit people. The highest rates of AFib are in the healthiest, most active cultures. So even they're probably taking it to an extreme, right? They're hearing about all this, craze about exercise, and they're already doing it. It was part of their lifestyle, and then they're probably going out and doing more on top of it. So we have a way of buying into the most extreme, severe forms of lifestyle change that we think will benefit us. And that's why we have things that are so successful on the market, such as P90X and T25 and Insanity and CrossFit. I mean, these are, in many cases, over the top. I mean, when you follow what they recommend for you to do in some of these programs, and I'm a big proponent of exercise. I'm a fellow in the American College of Sports Medicine, so I know exercise is medicine. But it can also be a drug to the point of danger. And elite trained athletes, so I played on the professional tennis circuit in Europe, and I remember taking long periods of time to relax and rejuvenate. And what we're being asked, the general public, to perform as exercise, as healthy in some of these crazed fitness routines, are over the top. They're beyond what professional level athletes do. I mean, we see them out there performing, but in their downtime, they're taking downtime. I mean, they're recovering. When they're not in season, they're recovering. But no, you're not allowed to. I mean, the general population, you guys have to hit it hard. Did you all exercise this morning? And that mentality of, hey, more is better. It's all about the quantity. No, we have the Fitbit, we have the Fuel Band, we have the Up Band, we have the Basic, we have all these different measures of our activity. And guess what? They're all based on a quantity valuation. You have to exercise more, burn more calories, and eat less. That's the answer. I mean, that's what we're led to believe. That it's all about exercise more. If you're not exercising every day, you're not doing yourself, a healthy service, and that's just unfortunate. So this is what I call the non-fit solution. Despite the fact that more than 45% of women and more than 45% of women and more than 30% of men are trying to lose weight at any given time, more than 65% of adults are still overweight. So it's not working. This heightened focus on extreme of all of these things are what's at play here. I like this one. You sometimes go in, where'd that scale go? Did I put it under the bed, or did I put it in the closet, or did it actually walk there on its own? All right, so what do we have? Well, we have, again, this advertising and media, this oversaturation. I think I was supposed to have stopped 15 minutes ago, wasn't I? I think so. I can finish up, and then we can go back to this. But these attainable goals. Yeah, I'm going to give everybody a little break. So we have these models, and listen, this is great to aspire to. These world-class, kayakers and Derritoras, and of course Usain, who's insane. But we have all these great role models to look toward. But they're deceiving. These individuals are committing themselves full-time to this with a support team that we just don't have, right? Because we're supporting our support team, right? Many of you are. You're supporting your family. So we just don't have what they have, and so it's unrealistic. And then we have to go along with this obsession and over extreme nature of what we expect from people. And I'm going to throw my organization under the bus a little bit, in that the American College of Sports Medicine and the American Heart Association promote physical activity recommendations. And if you look at these and just kind of absorb them, man, I'm not feeling too good about myself right now. I would do this. Moderately intense cardio workout, a minimum of 30 minutes a day, 5 to 7 days a week. Or you could do vigorous, intense, 20 minutes per day, 3 times a week. And, there's an and here, so if you have to choose one of those, and then you have to do 8 to 10 strength exercises, 10 to 15 repetitions for all muscle groups, 2 to 4 times a week. Well, geez, I guess I have to double up some of these then. Oh, and then the one I left out was you have to engage in some form of flexibility and core exercise as well, yes.
Are the percentages that are in parentheses, are those like what you're looking for in your target heart rate or something?
Yes, good. Yeah, that's what your intensity level should be. That's why it's moderate and then intense. So if you look at this, less than 50% follow these recommendations. I don't always do that. Gosh, I haven't followed this in a long time. And that's a lot. That's expecting everybody every day. So again, I think we have a tendency to compartmentalize what we have in our mind as what it takes to lead a fit lifestyle. And I want to just also, again, put a plug in here for lifestyle being very important. You know, parking further away from your destination, going out and walking with a colleague. If you have to go visit somebody within the same building that you're in, instead of picking up the phone and calling or emailing, you get up and you walk and find them or meet them. So, you know, I think this structured exercise is good, but I have a better alternative for it. And I think we can reduce it down to 4 days a week and not overdo it and not run the risk of repetitive stress injuries, right? I mean, if you're lifting this way, I mean, that'd be hard. So you don't need to do it. The evidence, the scientific evidence doesn't support it. I have a paper right now in review at a leading physiology journal in the world. It's one of the premier, and it was a study that I did over 2 years in 3 different groups of men and women that incorporated what my response to these current exercise recommendation strategies are. And it blew me away when I saw how well they responded to just 4 days a week of exercise. It wasn't over the top. It left them still, it didn't leave them hostage to the exercise. Because that's how many people feel. You know, you do P90X, you feel like you're hostage. Oh my God, I got to get it in. If I don't get it in, oh, I can't. And then at the end of the 90 days, you're like, I'm done. I met my goal. You know, I'm at my wedding, my reunion, and now I'm going to let it all out. And then, you know, they have a total relapse, and then they get back to it, you know, a year later if they're lucky. So the American College of Sports Medicine promotes this exercise as medicine. And I believe that. I think it is a medicine. But medicine is only as good as attacking that disease or that condition. And then you still have some of these, you know, side effects, and it doesn't take the whole person into account. So I add on this extra thing. And I know if they ever saw me doing this, here I am a fellow, I'm supposed to be out promoting the message. I am. I believe in exercise. But nutrition is the cure. So if you want to get at the root of disease, it's nutrition that is ultimately going to do it. I was going to stop here. Why don't we all take a little break? I know I threw a lot at you. So happy to answer any questions. But yeah, run to the bathroom and grab something to eat.
Are you going to continue?
I am. Is that okay?
That was great.
Yeah.
It's drink.
Jim came up afterwards, he's like, you have to go down there, you're really interested in stuff. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Introduced a little controversy or challenge to your original thought. That's good. Yeah, you know, I always like going to presentations that present some stuff that's a little bit out there. I think that's important. And again, I'm trying to make sure that I understand all of your orientations here, and we'll get to know you a little bit more as the morning goes on. So, what is the starting point for becoming fit? And I use that word, so just to define that, when we talk about fit, it's about having that level of health that allows you to perform and do your activities of daily living, to engage in a healthy, active lifestyle, and to have a reduced risk for disease. So when we use that word fit, you know, it kind of encompasses health. And I think that's important because, you know, if you're my 18-year-old son who's a 6'5", you know, basketball player, fit isn't on his radar of definitions of terms that he should know. It's all about, you know, just being a better athlete. And sometimes there's an incongruency or a disconnect between performance, right, athletic performance, dance performance, and fitness and health. And so you've all probably experienced that. I mean, if you talk to a lot of young, I would say boys probably more than girls, although I don't know that for sure, you know, their orientation to fitness and health is not on their radar. They want to be able to perform better. And that's the reality. I know I was at that place once. And just tell me what I can do, and that's what my son wants to know. Tell me what I need to do so that I can dunk the ball better. You know, he can dunk easily, and I'm like, no, you gotta take care of your body. You can't just suck down creatine. You know, I think that's the answer to everything, right? He walks around the house with a jug of creatine. I'm like, what the heck? That's my kid. So, you know, there's that disconnect. So I put that out there just because I think it's so important for us to constantly, every opportunity we have, football players, lacrosse players, cross-country runners, females, track and field gymnasts, that we have to make that congruent. We have to make their fitness and their performance congruent with their health. And we don't always do that. And that has to be our starting point. So, make it personal. Strive for optimal health. Write down a personal mission statement. Make a list of simple, achievable lifestyle goals. Adhere to daily lifestyle strategies. That's what I'm going to show you in a moment here. You know, pie in the sky is great, but listen, I'm a realist. What do we have to do on a daily, moment-by-moment basis? You guys, I just gave you that, you know, one of the reasons why I gave you that break. You know, you had a moment-by-moment decision to make, you know, to go back there and choose yogurt or a banana or a water or some tea. How did you do? No, I'm only kidding. I will not judge you. But, you know, those moment-by-moment lifestyle decisions they add up. They add up. And being able to have the ability to more thoughtlessly, habitually make these lifestyle choices is paramount. And that's what we're striving for. We want to do it at an early age as possible. And that's where I think you know, your roles and what you do as educators is so valuable, because listen, kids are not listening to their parents. I got 3, and they do not listen to their parents. They're listening to you much more than they are. Those of you that have kids, you know what I'm talking about. All right, so schedule it into your day. Staying active, healthy, family time, personal time, the routine sleep. So I'm a big holistic person. Yeah, I'm a scientist, and I love numbers, and I love the data. I mean, that's what, you know, drives my professional career. But ultimately, I'm a humanist, and I like the personal level to this. And so that's why I love talking and traveling and presenting to groups, because ultimately, that's what makes the difference, not me writing a scientific paper in a prestigious journal. So what's the number one excuse? I don't have enough time. The reality is you're wasting time, believe it or not, if you don't manage your health, because it makes you more productive and more efficient. So you have to plan ahead. I always tell people, you know, sometimes we like to wait to undergo a new lifestyle strategy until we have all of our ducks in order, until we have all the information, until we understand fully and completely what it is that we're getting ourselves into. And I say, forget that. I mean, just start. You know, give up drinking sugar beverages as your starting point. Start eating breakfast that contains, you know, a healthy serving of lean protein. Drink 8 glasses of water a day. Take one of those, and that's your starting point. So I always tell people, don't wait until you have the complete overhaul. Sometimes people need that. I have a brother-in-law who fluctuates, you know, he's 5'4", between 300 and 220 pounds. And he's frustrating. He and I have a great relationship. But he's frustrated because he has to make sure that his lifestyle is absolutely ready to go. And he devotes, you know, his full waking moment. He's got 3 little girls, you know, and he's got to, you know, put them on hold while he loses his weight for his, you know, 3 or 4 months. And I'm like, Billy, man, that's destructive to you and so just start little and start these little choices that you can make. So how active are you? Well, it doesn't matter, but just start doing things that you can enjoy and that you know that you're going to be able to sustain. So you've heard me talk about this before, but it's the quality of what you do more so than the quantity. Don't become fixated by the Fitbit, by the accelerometer, the fuel band, or one of these other MyFitnessPal. You know, those are all based on, listen, first of all, they're all made by IT techno people. All right, they're not made by scientists. You know, they're all about the energy balance equation of, you know, how much exercise you're doing matched with how much you're eating. You know, they don't pay much attention to the qualitative aspect of it. So don't be misled. Yes, the marketing by Nike and these companies is over the top, but they don't focus too much on this component. That needs to happen. So research has found that these 30 minutes doesn't have to be completed all at once. You can break this up throughout the day, and that's why I was just saying if you can build it into your normal everyday lifestyle, that's just as effective. I thought this was a really powerful one. I know the other talk presenters are going to touch on this, but this study was real interesting. I have the citation for it, but it disappeared. I'm sorry. This was recent, came out a couple of weeks ago. They looked at, in a group of individuals, this question of quality over quantity. And what I thought was so interesting, they broke down the changes in all of these physiological variables over a year of weight loss. So change in body weight, waist circumference, fat mass, subcutaneous adipose tissue, so that's the fat that the sumo wrestlers get by drinking all that beer and eating all that food and the way they do. So they store a lot of fat, but they don't have a lot of visceral fat. I mean, yeah, they're 300 pounds to 600 pounds, but sumo wrestlers don't have a lot of visceral internal fat. It's mostly just located right underneath their skin, and that's not harmful to any great degree. So here's subcutaneous adipose tissue. Here's the problematic one, visceral fat. Now, the major point I want to make with this is that this is physical activity, and a minus means they didn't pay much attention to the qualitative aspect of the activity. So they weren't doing different types. They were doing just the same type. This is diet quality. All they were focusing on was the quantity, not the quality. This group was not paying attention to their activity qualitatively, but they were their diet. This group was paying attention to their activity, but not their diet. And then this group was paying attention to both. And what I think is really important is if you look at the variable that really matters, and that's the visceral adipose tissue, if you were to ask me, more than any of these others, because that's the one that's mostly associated and aligned with disease. The ones that paid attention to the diet quality, so the qualitative component of their diet, not the amount of food that they were restricting, they did much better. And you can see that right here. So they lost more visceral fat, whether they focused on just the diet or they focused on the diet and the activity. You all see that? That's powerful. If there's one take-home message to this, pay less attention to the absolute amount of food that you're eating and the exercise that you're doing, and pay more attention to, if you are one of those, and make it your diet. That's going to influence your health more than anything. So, that's physiological. And we know exercise is good for some physiological health improvements, but exercise also impacts our brain. Sometimes we forget that, and particularly among young adolescent boys and girls, and high school level individuals, boys and girls. And I want to just stay on this for a minute. There was a wonderful landmark study that was published in a neuroscience journal, and it was done in Germany. And I'll never forget it because it resonated with me tremendously. It was about the same time I had this atrial fibrillation event, so I couldn't really engage in my chronic, high-level, intense exercise all the time. So I said, man, I got to find an alternative. So the study came out and it showed that in highly trained individuals, they had them run on a treadmill, and they infused a dye into their vein, and the dye was capable, because not everything is capable, of passing through their blood-brain barrier. So it gained entrance into their brain. And then at the same time, they did what's called a positron emission tomography test, a PET scan of their brains. This is awesome. This is high-level research. So it's called thermal dye dilution. So they inject this dye into the vein, the dye reaches into the brain, and guess what? The dye is labeled with a substance that attaches to the receptors for your endorphin receptors, your endocannabinoid receptors, so the same things that get triggered when you smoke marijuana. So it triggers that euphoria and that feeling of happiness and high. Well, this is what happened. They had them run on a treadmill at varying intensities, and they showed convincingly, without question, that when individuals engage in activity, that's only about 60% of your maximum. You know what that's equivalent to? Us all getting up right now and either going for a brisk walk or a light jog for an extended period of time. You have to reach a critical threshold of time in order for these receptors, these endorphin receptors, to open up. Because they don't just open up if you're just kind of talking like I am right now or walking. You have to do it for an extended period of time. Why? Because the blood flow has to reach a critical level. 60% is all you need, and here's why. if you exercise at less than 60% of your maximum, it's not stimulating enough to drive increased blood flow into your brain. Let's say I was to ask all of us to stand up right now and sprint as fast as we can. Would we have a lot of blood moving through our brain? No, very little. Why? Where's the blood going? Into your muscles, yeah, into your heart, into the muscles that need it. Isn't that awesome? You exercise at 60% of your maximum, you trigger the greatest channel opening of your brain for blood. And it's got to be controlled because you can't have too much blood moving through that brain. It's very, very controlled. But when you're exercising at 60%, that's when the channels of the blood flow open up the most. And then if you start going higher than that, they start to restrict because they can't have too much coming through. If you go less than that, it's not enough to really drive it through. That triggers these cannabinoid receptors to open up. And so it correlated perfectly that when they showed it on the PET scan, at 60%, those receptors illuminated. Then they had them, these guys, these runners didn't know what was going on. Then they said, hey, report how you're feeling right now. Off the charts. Euphoria, happiness, feelings of mood changing to the highest level were off the charts. Now, this gets me all goosebumps on the back. I mean, this is like, man, this is big time. How are you going to recommend exercise for people? Well, I want to turn people onto it. Well, I don't know if I want to tell them to go do CrossFit or P90X, right? Or go out and stroll with their dog. The dog's getting exercise, but they're not. I want them to work out at that critical level that maximizes blood flow through the brain and turns on that euphoria. Yes?
For how long?
It's got, I left out that critical one. It's got to be a minimum of 60 minutes. I know. Damn it, who's got that much time? Here's the good news. You don't need to do it every day. The effects are persistent. So you're going to see what I'm going to propose here for you. And this is the study that I did, and I'm hopefully going to get it published. So 60%, it's in review right now, increases it. Anecdotally, we also tell people say they feel better. But here's the research. Reduced anxiety, depression, self-esteem, sleep quality and duration goes up. And then neurogenesis. There's a substance called VEGF, I know, vascular endothelial growth factor. And then there's BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor. And I know these because I studied them. If I had a chalkboard, I'm a teacher, so I like to write. But make believe I just said BDNF and VEGF. And VEGF and BDNF are two hormones that are released in the brain that promote both vascular regeneration, so new blood vessels in the brain, and new nerve growth in the brain, brain-derived neurotropic factor. So I've proven this with a colleague of mine who's a neuroscientist at Union, showing that BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor, goes up even in individuals that we would consider to be over the hill, 80-year-olds that are exercising for 3 months. BDNF goes up. So we've measured it, and that's only in the blood. We haven't documented it in the brain. But at least in the blood, BDNF goes up. And the markers of cognition also improve. So these are, most people who are 80 years plus have mild cognitive impairment. We call it MCI. And if you can delay MCI, that's a huge bonus. And so in 3 months of them exercising at that 60% level, their mild cognitive impairment improved, and their levels of BDNF went up. I know, it was awesome. And it got published in the one of the top medical journals in the world, the American Journal of Preventive Medicine. So if you're interested, I could share that publication with you. All right, endurance exercise not only helps the brain, but it helps other parts of our body as well. Our cardiovascular system reduces risk of cancer. I've already talked about the health improvement. So you can walk. Walking is great, as long as it's of a critical intensity of 60%, I would say go for it. And you can see that walking is extremely effective at lots of very critical diseases: high blood pressure, diabetes, and then heart disease. But we don't want to leave out strength training. Strength training is important because it helps preserve our lean body mass. And you might have heard me refer to that term before. So, fat mass is implicated. This is really important, actually. Fat mass is implicated in disease, but lean body mass is implicated in health. So the more lean body mass you have, the more you are going to be able to perform activities, the more you're going to be engage yourself in healthy living. So resistance training does many of the same things. Can you imagine that? 91 years old. That was a world record. Helen Zeitmeister, 91. And that's impressive. I have, the push-up, perfect push-up? I've tried doing that. It's hard. I mean, this guy's 90. Yeah. Okay, so here we are. My practical strategies, and I'll finish up with this. So my practical strategies are this. I propose a 4-day-a-week model of exercise. So I'm going to focus on the exercise right now. And the exercise encompasses, and I'm curious to hear your feedback as to how you feel this compares to the American College of Sports Medicine, the Centers for Disease Control, and the American Heart Association model of that, almost every day of exercise. I propose 4 days, and I've given it the acronym RISE. And I love that name. I just came up with it on a whim. And by the way, I was watching the Olympics, so I came up with this name 3 years ago, RISE. And I kind of referred to, I wrote a blog for MVP a little while back, and I said, rise up, well before the Olympics. And I said, rise up. And I described this protocol, my exercise, because I've done the research on it, I'm publishing, hopefully, many papers on it. And sure and behold, those of you that saw the Olympics, what was one of the main logos that kept on coming up on TV? Yeah, it was Rise Up. I'm like, And it was by a healthcare company, too.
You inspired them.
No, I don't think so. Maybe they stole it from MVP. Anyway, so this is what I believe. 1 day a week of resistance training, 1 day a week of interval training, 1 day a week of the stretching, yoga, tai chi, some type of healthy, low impact, full body, joint mobilizing, muscle flexing, flexibility engaging type of movement. So stretching. And then the 4th one is endurance. Now you can put in a 5th day if you want. So 4 is kind of my model of what you need to get in. People always ask, Jesus, 1 day of resistance exercise enough? Well, yes, it is if you maintain the proper intensity. But the other thing is, you're engaging in certain amounts of resistance exercise, particularly with your lower body or upper body, depending upon what you're doing for your interval training. Everyone knows who's done stretching or yoga or Pilates or Tai Chi, you're engaging your core. You're doing some strengthening with those exercises. So the only day that you're really not engaging in some other form of resistance exercise is this one. So, and this one is benefiting because you're getting some of that endurance level intensity exercise when you're doing some of these exercises right here. You're not when you're doing these. These are more intense, but these are less intense. And I'm a big believer in that. I think we've just overindulged too far with our exercise. So 4 types of training a week. You don't feel hostage to it, and I'll show you why. You build it into your day. So what's required of the resistance exercise? Well, it's 4 components. You start off with a dynamic warm-up, and that can engage the full body. It's doing, a dynamic warm-up is pretty standard. I've written a book on this, actually, by the way. So, I have the exercises that I would say qualify for a dynamic warm-up, but it's little things, like bringing your leg up to your chest, jumping rope, doing a little jog, doing karaoke, sidestepping, and then the footwork and agility is just using a rope ladder on the ground that you would run through a couple of fun exercises. It's actually a lot of fun. I do this with morbidly obese, people that have risk factors for cardiovascular disease or diabetes. And they perform all of these exercises. And I also do it with the athletic teams that I consult with and I work with. So high level, world-class athletes. I worked with a world-class cyclist and had him doing this. And no matter your age or your level of health, you can do it. And then the resistance portion is all body weight exercise. So it's things like push-ups, sit-ups, you modify them. So for example, a person who's not accustomed to doing a push-up, they would start here. And doing a push-up here is much different than doing a push-up on the ground. And if you needed to go up to a little bit higher, you could do it here. So some of the obese people had to start on a railing, and they did their push-up like this. So you can modify it, make everyone do it. Then you do lunges, you do squats, you introduce tubes and bands, so that it's mobile. They're not dependent on a gym. They're not dependent on going outside of their house to do this exercise. They can, but they don't need to. So it's mobile. And then you do some core exercises and then a cool down. So the best resistance exercises in 25 minutes, I'm proposing yes. No, I'm just kidding. Things like push-ups, things like pull-ups, and then the squats are all examples of what you can do. Interval exercise doesn't have to be anything more than a jump rope, or running in place, or walking outside of your neighborhood, or in your neighborhood. So it's a 5-minute warm-up, interspersed with 4 to 7 of these 30-second to 60-second all-out sprints. Now someone's saying, well gosh, no, if you've got heart disease, or you just had a heart attack, or you're a diabetic, there's no way you can do sprints. Well no, absolutely you can. The evidence is very clear. They've done very high-level, sophisticated, I've done it with my own at-risk people. In fact, in cardiac rehabilitation right now, one of the effective exercise strategies is not to have them just do this continuous low-level exercise. You ramp it up. Hey, Mr. Jones, get yourself going for 30 seconds as hard as you can go. And for Mr. Jones, it's like this, an arm crank exercise. Or it's a 3.5-minute mile walk on the treadmill. That for us would be a casual walk, but for Mr. Jones, who just had his heart attack, it's full bore. That's his intense bout. So don't for a second classify intense exercise. Now, this doesn't even pale in comparison to, the P90X and the T25 and the, CrossFits that are pushing you over the top for long periods of time extended. This is just short, intense bouts for your relative level of fitness, and then allowing you to recover for 2 to 4 minutes. Well, would you believe that this type of exercise, so back when I was going through graduate school, when we were learning how to increase our cardiovascular fitness, we were informed that you have to go out and run long miles. If you're training for a marathon, you need to go out and run for a long period of time. This type of exercise is better for your cardiovascular system than long, continuous, moderate aerobic exercise. And you're not doing anything aerobic there. You're doing 30 seconds of what we call fully anaerobic. Guess what it does? It activates those aerobic enzymes to such a degree because of the demand and need for oxygen that they get turned on and they begin to increase in number. The aerobic enzymes, even though you're doing a fully anaerobic type of activity. So I tell people all the time, resistance exercise is the best for your muscles and for your bones to remain healthy. Interval exercise is the best type of exercise you can do for your heart. Now that's contrary to what you probably heard up until this point. That most people would say, geez, I always thought that your heart was best for, exercise was moderate aerobic type exercise. Well no, the best type of aerobic exercise you can do for your heart is interval type exercise, and it's primarily anaerobic. Not only that, but this type of exercise, interval, is proven to be the best for burning body fat. Again, it burns very little body fat while you're doing it, but the afterburn and the activation of those aerobic enzymes is so high that you actually increase the amount of fat that you're burning when you're at rest. So if you want to improve a person's body composition, you have a young female student who's been struggling with their weight for a long period of time, don't put this poor little girl on a treadmill or on a bike or have them do this hours and hours. They'll despise it and they won't survive at it doing that. So instead, if they want to do that once a week to keep their mood high, I would say that would be good. But if you want to affect the greatest change in this young girl's life to help her combat this increased adiposity, get her going on interval exercise. It will hands down be the most effective strategy that she can do to improve her body composition. And again, you're not striving, to have that closed-minded focus on body weight would be very short-minded. And just to make sure that that's stressed, that we're not looking for a weight reduction, we're looking for an improvement in body composition because that's where the greatest health benefits are going to come. So my other third type of exercise, the S, is I classify as stretching, yoga, tai chi, Pilates, and flexibility. It's full body stretching, core, flexibility, joint mobility, balance, and you want to do it for about 45 to 60 minutes. And what I'm showing you here is a study that came out in 2012 in a leading alternative medicine journal showing that pre-yoga, the levels of GABA, and that's GABA aminobutyric acid, is released in the brain, and higher levels are associated with greater feelings of sense of happiness and fulfillment. So when you have high levels of GABA, that's good. We find that people who are addicted addictive oriented with drugs have very low levels of GABA. And that's why they have this urge and this need to want to go out and fulfill that low level of GABA with drugs. And so people who fight addiction have low GABA. What this is showing, what I find so awesome about what we can induce change in, is when they measure the GABA levels in the brain of individuals before yoga and then after yoga, look at that difference. I mean, this is huge. You know, this is something that's just innate in your brain. You can't change that. You can't eat something to increase it. It's what it is. And if you can induce a lifestyle variable that increases your feelings of healthy brain state, then you should do that. So yoga has some wonderful benefits. I'm a science guy, so I like this stuff, and you can really see something that isn't influenced by something else that we're doing. I mean, this is just innate in who you are. The fact that the GABA goes up is awesome. All right, so endurance exercise you can do with a 5-minute warm-up, and then 45 plus minutes of continuous moderate, again, 60% on a scale of 1 to 10, of any rhythmical type exercise. And hopefully we'll be here soon. All right, so I just wanted to show you a real quick clip of my study participants. This is my first group that I put through my Rise Up study. This is the one that's in review right now. Hopefully it'll play. Ed? It doesn't have to, but it would be cool if it did.
Because you know we do the brain check kind of things like that, get off the move before they take the test, but is it doing anything or not? It's kind of
Unfortunately, he ruined it for our school district because it is excellent.
Brain is good. I think
Yeah.
I just
It's something. It's better than them not doing anything. I have teachers that you have to sit in that desk until it's time to go to lunch, and you sit in that desk until it's time to go home.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the nutrition aspect of this. So that's the exercise, and I'm happy to take questions. I can talk to you in great detail about it, the challenges that you confront. So here are some nourishment strategies, and this is how I classify the nutritional hierarchy of importance. First and foremost, what are you eating? It's not how much. I know many people would focus on, hey, how much are you eating? I'm a huge believer in what, because that ultimately is going to determine. Yeah, let's try it. Oh, good, I saw it. Wow, good thing we have Ed here. Good call.
We're still lose the audio probably.
Oh, okay. So that's the sprint. So you can see these people, they're obese, classified as obese. If we get the, oh, I hear it.
Here?
Yeah. Maybe my computer, that little,
Oh, sorry.
That's coming out of my computer. How do you like that sprint?
I really like it. It's one of my favorites.
Why is that? So this is a woman who had never exercised. She struggled with obesity her whole life, and before the study, she was going to go in for gastric bypass surgery. She lost 54 pounds. Here's the yoga. I'm a certified yoga instructor, so I taught the yoga to all the participants. And that's actually me right there. But they did great, and here they are doing the performance training. There's the footwork and agility. Gary lost 125 pounds. 125 pounds. He's been trying to get on Oprah. Yeah, it's amazing when I see him. You came in and he took a move. Thank you. That's great.
So this is the resistance.
That was a resistance. Yeah, I didn't show you the endurance, but you know what endurance is. All right. Thank you very much, Ed. So the what are you eating is critical. Then the how much, and there's a calorie control thing that I use, that, you know, I say, oh, you'll see in a minute. How are you eating? Are you eating mindfully, without distraction? Are you present when you're eating? You know, sometimes we're so absent-minded. I feel through that all the time at work, more than I want to be. Why are you eating? You know, are you filling a void that's there? Are you doing 1 to 4 properly and consistently? Shoot for 80% consistency. I actually say 85%. I give people 15%. And if you're eating 4 to 6 times a week, 4 to 6 times a day, 15% of the total time that you eat, you're allowed to kind of indulge and eat kind of that comfort food. It equates to about 1 meal a day or 1 day a week. So, you know, sometimes for some people, it works best for them to just take 1 day. You know, 1 day I just want to kind of let down, not pay any attention to what I'm eating. And if I want to wake up and have Dunkin' Donuts, I want to have a couple of Dunkin' Donuts and a cup of coffee. Yeah, I know. But then the rest of the days they work. But then others say, you know what? I don't like that 1 day. I just want to have one time during the day, each day. I want to have maybe some dark chocolate or something else that I want to eat. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, the labeling of food is such a detriment to your long-term success. And then, when are you eating? That's important. I know there's been some controversy over the timing aspect, but so here's my kind of nuts and bolts. I know I'm reeling through this, but I want to finish up that. It's all about ratios, not rations. So pay more attention to the qualitative component of combining these nutrients than the amount of these nutrients. So these 4 to 6 meals a day, every 3 hours, or a certain amount of calories depending upon your needs. Healthy lean protein at each of those. Smaller meals as the day go on. I like this 2 to 1 ratio of carbohydrate to protein, so it works out to about 50% of your intake is carbohydrate, 25% is protein, and 25% is fat. So when I say carbohydrates, what I really mean are plant-based greens and colorful fruits and vegetables. That should be the primary form of carbohydrate you're consuming. The second form of carbohydrate that you should be consuming are of the legumes. You know, lentils are the top one. Chickpeas and black beans and other, you know, healthy legumes. And then the grains, the whole grains. And there's so many varieties of whole grains. Kamut and amaranth and quinoa. I mean, there's tons that we should be eating. Steel-cut oats, of course. So that would be the kind of the third tier. And then the fruits would come in as well for those carbohydrates. So those are kind of the 4 main forms. The vegetables, legumes, the grains, and then the fruits. Make it a lifestyle. Focus on whole food, primarily plant-based, and then some other additional considerations would be protein, calcium, vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids, and then try to eat often. I know there's some controversy on that, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I've done the research, and I'll show it to you in a minute, but you want to eat more often. I know that sometimes we're informed, you know, if you look at the sumo wrestlers, I'll go back to them, they put on all that weight not because they're eating often. They only eat 2, they say sometimes, on some days, 2 big meals a day. So I tell people all the time, if you want to gain weight, eat less often. If you want to stay lean and have a favorable body composition, eat more often. So eat less often to gain weight, eat more often to maintain a healthy body composition. So this is just showing the importance of essential amino acids, and one of them is leucine, primarily found in dairy and whey. It's a milk-based protein. I know there's some controversy over dairy and animal, but if you're eating grass-fed, and not many people could argue that that's not a real healthy food choice. Now here's the study. This is why, this is not my study. This was a study that was conducted in McMaster University in Canada. And it was a great study because it looked at 3 top trials of 80 grams of protein over a 24-hour time period. So just think of a day, and this is really important. What they did was they said, hey, one group of you, I'm going to give you 2 boluses of 40 grams of protein. And I want to measure your protein synthesis. And why that's important is because protein synthesis is what builds new lean body mass. So and that's what you want. You want to have a favorable increase in your lean body mass, whether you're an athlete or an adult who's trying to survive and live a healthy life. It doesn't matter. Lean body mass is critical to maintain. So that's the goal. You want to promote lean body mass. And that's what this myofibrillar fractional synthetic rate stands for. And so the higher the better. So if you're eating 2 grams boluses every 6 hours, that would be the black bars, you don't have as high of a response over the course of a day. If you're eating a pulse, 10 grams of protein every hour and a half, that's going to be these white bars right here. So the third bar. The middle bar is the one I want to focus on, and that's the intermediate. So if you eat 20 grams of protein every 3 hours, which is only 80 calories, you maximize, that's what these stars are right here, and that's this one in the middle. You maximize your lean body mass. Now, there isn't anybody with no matter what disease, no matter what health status, no matter what age, you don't want to increase their protein synthesis rate. That's a favorable response for their lean body composition. So, what's the way to build that nutritionally? And this is where it comes in better than exercise, is eating more often of this 20 grams of protein. There's no arguing it. So when I saw this, I conducted, I'm going to kind of pass through here for the sake of time. I conducted my own study. It was published in the journal Obesity last year, and I did the same thing. I had a group of obese men and women for 2 months consume 20 to 25 grams of protein every 3 hours during the day. And I compared them to a group that was only eating 3 times a day. So I wanted to look at the comparison. And across the board, that's what this group is right here, the HP6. So the HP6 of the triangle. So total body weight loss was average, but then when you got into total body fat and abdominal fat, the group that was eating the more protein more frequently had significantly greater amounts of belly fat and total body fat. So I followed this study up. That was only an acute day study, and I said, what happens if you follow these people over a 2-month time period? And the results were off the charts. So it's kind of cool, to contribute to that type of research. So that was their body composition, and this was their metabolism. So their metabolism went way up too. That's these bars right here, right. So their metabolism went through the roof. So you increase your metabolism the more frequently you're eating that critical amount of 20 grams of protein. So how is it that we can control our portion size? Well, I use the fist. So the size of your fist for carbohydrate, that's 50%. The size of your palm for protein, that's 25%. And then because of the highly concentrated calories within fat, you only have to eat the size of your thumb. So I always tell people, talk to your hand. In fact, over the holidays, I wrote a blog for MVP for when you go to parties. And you know how parties are sometimes at like 3 in the afternoon and then 7 at night. I said, just talk to your hand while you're at the party. I said, do this. Go up to the hors d'oeuvre platter and take your little plate, like you guys have in front of you, and stack it up with fresh vegetables the size of your fist. Why not? It's healthy, it's great for you, make it colorful. And then if they have some protein sources, like they have those little chicken skewers and some of those other things, make it the size of your palm. You don't have to, you can even do half of a palm if you wanted to, if you're going to 2 parties, for example. And then I said, oh wait, you know what I did? I varied it a little bit. The hand was for the vegetables. Oh, I know what I did. I made it kind of humorous. This works out to be about the same thing. And then I said, so then you could use that for your palm. And then I said, take the equivalent of your 2 smaller fingers and make that for the dessert. So that would be like the slice of a little piece of pie or cake or some cookies. And then I said, with your thumb, index finger, and middle finger, you can take your beverage and sip your beverage. So that was how you can eat to your hand during the holidays. Okay. You guys are probably getting sick of me. So choose to be fit and well. Focus on consistency, not perfection. I'm a big believer in the harmony and the balance of the body. So arete, which is the old Greek term for being the best you can be. Socrates and Aristotle. Optimal health is that harmony of all of those. This is just some reiterating what I've just talked about. There's 4 exercise days a week only, protein-rich meals, breakfast being the most important. Maintain consistency, catch slips before they turn into major ones, and follow the advice of a professional, of which you'll be hearing from today. So what I do is I provide all my clients and people that I work with shopping cards. And so I print these out, and I make them colorful, and it's like a little index card, and you bring it with you to the grocery store. So now you know, okay, these are my carbohydrates, and again, we've already talked about it. You got your grains, you got your vegetables, you got your fruits, and then your legumes. And those are the top ones. They're antioxidant rich. They're the best way to nourish your body. Eat the fish size. And then I have the optimal protein sources. So the fish, the dairy, the meat, the nuts. And I always tell people to aim for pasture-fed, grass-fed forms of all of these forms of animal. That's the best type. Hummingbirds. We should all eat hummingbirds, because and shark. Hummingbirds and sharks. Hummingbirds have, I know, that sounds disgusting. Take that back. I only brought that up because hummingbirds have the highest concentration per body volume of omega-3 fatty acids. And those are the really healthy. I kind of passed over that one really quick. But I have the highest concentration of omega-3. And then sharks are resistant to all disease. Sharks never get cancer. They never get sick. So shark cartilage, as probably some of you have heard, is a hot commodity. And they eat it over in Japan. So, and then here are some healthy oils that you can use. And again, it's based on that finger. So then I give you some powerhouse breakfast. This is what I have every morning. If I'm exercising, I'll have this after. On the weekends, I'll make this.
Can you go back to what you Can we have
Steel cut oats, water, raisins, peanut butter. We're all putting some whey and then some honey. What I do, I know this is crazy. My students make fun of me, but I take a tablespoon of olive oil every morning. I'm Italian too, but so I take olive oil every morning. But it's a wonderful way to start the day with some healthy fat. Wait, yeah, olive oil. Just extra virgin.
Just organic.
Straight up. Yeah. I'll sometimes put it in my oatmeal, but I get into the habit also. It's actually good. Some people balk at making steel cut oats, but they're very easy to do. You can put them in a container, bring it to a boil, and you're out the door. I can share these all with Bob, and he can pass them on. These wraps are easy. You can make them on the go. People talk about not having time. Wraps are so easy. You get a whole grain wrap. It's low calorie carb. It meets the 50%. You can get a whole grain one, it's better. And then you can just load it up with stuff. Great way. And here's some other options for people that struggle. I do this at my desk all the time, right here. When I was competing as a tennis player,
What is that? Rice cake?
Oh, it's a rice cake with all natural peanut butter and banana.
Oh.
You could do a piece of, Ezekiel whole grain bread if you wanted to, or something like that. Pizza. I'm Italian, but man, if you make pizza on a pita, I made them the other night. Delicious. I put legumes on it, Swiss chard. I'll put kale sometimes, black beans, garbanzo. Oh man, it's to die for. It's really good. And then here are my 20, 25 gram servings of protein. Look how easy I make this. So now I can say, just take this with you, and anytime you have an eating occasion, you should be choosing one of these sources of protein as your starting point. It's only 80 calories in some cases. Sometimes it's a little bit more with the nuts. But it's a relatively low calorie, but very satiating. Thank you very much. I know I talked a long time.